Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday. I'm Jonathan, your director. Alongside Ashley here, we got to start today with another sizable jump in cases from the Department of Health.
Hey everyone, health officials are reporting 36 new COVID-19 cases today. 34 patients are on Oahu, 1 is on the Big Island, and 1 is on Kauai. The statewide total now stands at 1,130, and about 75% of patients have recovered from their symptoms. Governor Ige is meeting with the county mayors again today to determine whether the state is ready to reopen tourism amid the recent surge in cases. Meanwhile, Dr. Scott Miscavige is telling us he has big concerns about the state's testing capabilities.
Right now, I'm very concerned about the amount of testing we have. We only have about 2,500 tests a day. There are some days that we've hit 1,800 recently. And if we start to see a surge post 4th of July weekend, we could be running right at the edge. We're also seeing that there is capacity where like DLS does ship them to their mainland partners, but those are back to the old days of having 5, 7, 10, 12 days before we return. Now, how do you contact trace when you don't get a result and it's 10 or 12 days later? So even though DOH has effectively built a contact tracing team, you need those results promptly. So most of us believe that we need anywhere from 10 to 25,000 tests a day that could be run on island and turned around in 24 hours. We're a long way to go from that.
And here's a quick update on that cluster at Hale, Nani. Dr. Miscavige, who was leading testing efforts at the state's largest nursing home, said in that interview this morning that there were no deaths from that cluster and all infected residents are moving back into the facility. Hale Nani says 12 residents and 6 staff members did test positive for COVID-19.
Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell just wrapped up a press conference about the city's response to the pandemic. Here's a portion of what he had to say.
I could see the date staying August 1st if we were more rigorous in how visitors came in. That maybe you only allow people in who have a negative test. They can't come otherwise. No quarantine condition because we know it's hard to enforce quarantine and there's quarantine breakers out there, and the burden placed on the Honolulu Police Department is tremendous already. And we see a spike in crime right now that they need to address first and not be enforcing those who break quarantine. So August 1st, maybe everyone who's negative is allowed in, no one else is allowed in. That would be something I'd be willing to look at.
State public schools have finalized more details about the upcoming school year. Let's toss it over to Lacey Denise with more on that.
The changes won't be the same at all of the state's nearly 290 public schools. Instead, each campus is choosing their own instructional model. They have several options: face-to-face learning every day, a blended rotation, or a combination of the two. Blended means there will be one group of students on campus while the other group does distance learning. The hybrid option is similar to blended, but may be implemented differently at each school. Some students may go to school on certain days, while others could be required to report daily. A priority for face-to-face learning will be given to kindergarten through grade 2 and vulnerable students. All public schools must have 180 days of instruction and adhere to specific safety guidelines. Campuses have been closed since March because of the pandemic. They are scheduled to reopen on August 4th. For This Is Now, I'm Lacey Denise.
A TSA whistleblower says the agency made procedure changes to better protect passengers and officers after he raised concerns. TSA Federal Security Director Jay Brainard oversees Kansas airports. He first raised concerns about how TSA was handling the pandemic back in June. Brainard says the new measures include officers cleaning gloves or changing to a new pair between interactions with passengers. Officers will also be required to wear face shields in addition to face masks. To date, almost 1,000 TSA employees have tested positive for COVID-19 and 6 have died.
Park Won-soon, the longest-serving mayor in South Korea's capital and a fierce critic of economic inequalities, has been found dead. He was 64 years old. Police say Park's body was located in a wooded area near a restaurant in northern Seoul after he was reported missing by his daughter. It isn't immediately clear what caused Park's disappearance and death. Local media reports say one of Park's secretaries recently lodged a complaint with police over alleged sexual harassment.
Cases are also rising in Japan. Tokyo is reporting 224 new cases. That breaks the previous one-day record of 206 cases on April 17th, when the city saw its initial peak. Officials say most cases from the new outbreak are linked to nightclubs. There's been a rise in hate crimes and racist attacks against Asian Americans since the pandemic began. Elaine Quijano spoke to a family who was recently targeted.
Raymond Arosa and his wife Marie were celebrating Marie's birthday and the 4th of July at a restaurant in California when Arosa says his family became a target. Cell phone video shows tech CEO Michael Lofthouse yelling racial slurs at Arosa's family.
You need to leave now.
An Asian piece of
Arosa and his wife were born in the Philippines. He says they've been U.S. citizens for roughly 2 decades. How did you feel when he said those things to you?
I've never felt anything like it, but that for the first time was pretty strong, and I didn't know what to do.
Other recent harassment or hate crimes against Asian Americans include a stabbing at a Sam's Club in Midland, Texas, and an attack on a New York City subway. The FBI predicted the upswing in March, warning law enforcement that harassment of Asian Americans may increase amid the coronavirus. More than 3 months later, the numbers are surfacing. According to the Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, there have been more than 2,100 reported hate incidents against Asian Americans since the start of the pandemic. More than 800 of those were reported in California.
About 70% is what we would constitute verbal harassment.
Cynthia Che is co-executive director of Chinese for Affirmative Action. She says hundreds of hate crimes are typically reported every year, not thousands.
It comes from China. That's why.
Kung flu.
This terrible China virus.
Che believes there's a connection between rhetoric from the presidential podium to the real-world expressions of bias.
When we look at these first-hand accounts of anti-Asian hate, Trump's name is evoked.
Just like it was last weekend in California. In a statement to several media outlets, Lofthouse apologized, saying, "My behavior in the video is appalling. This was clearly a moment where I lost control and made incredibly hurtful and divisive comments." Do you accept his apology?
Yes, I do forgive him. I mean, I've done wrong things too, and I've been forgiven. But in no way am I agreeing to what he's done. No, I don't accept the apology.
In a statement to CBS News, the White House says the president has noted on numerous occasions the need to protect the Asian American community, but added he will, quote, continue to point to the fact that the origin of the virus is China. Raymond Arosa told us he has not spoken to Michael Lofthouse directly. When I asked what he would say to the CEO if he had a chance to speak to him, Arosa said he just wants to ask him why. Elaine Quijano, CBS News.
Another retailer will close hundreds of stores. Howard Dykes has details on that.
Bed Bath & Beyond cut its losses 20% but still lost more than $300 million over the spring quarter as its sales fell by half. Now the chain says over the next 2 years it'll close about 200 stores. That would still leave almost 1,000 Bed Bath & Beyonds, hopefully including the one at Pearl Ridge. Monsanto owner Bayer is now backing away from a Roundup settlement clause that would have let a science panel adjudicate future cancer cases. Bayer backed down after a federal judge said he was disinclined to approve it. United and American both stopped flying to Hong Kong after China imposed COVID testing for pilots. Australians are being warned not to travel to Hong Kong after China imposed new rules that allow outsiders to be transferred to mainland China and tried under Chinese law. The Hawaii legislature ends its session today without approving any aid to young brothers. The Hawaii County Council passed a resolution urging state officials to do something to help the shipping line.
2 cherished artifacts gifted to Captain Cook in the 18th century now have a permanent home in Hawaii. A feather cloak and helmet once owned by Chief Kalaniʻaupuu will be held in trust at the Bishop Museum. All right, joining us now is Melanie Ide, CEO and President of the Bishop Museum. Hey Melanie, how's it going?
Hi, good. Nice to
We
see
want
you.
you too. We wanted to talk more about the history of these items. What can you tell us?
Oh, well, the cloak and the helmet, the mahioli and ahula, is from the High Chief Kalaniʻo Puʻu. And these were his personal garments that he gifted to Captain Cook in 1779, all the way at Kealakekua Bay.
Let's talk about how the ownership of these items sort of transitioned over the past recent years.
Yeah, so these materials have been in the care of Te Papa, which is the National Museum in New Zealand, and they have been with Te Papa since, I believe, 1912 or 1913. So more than 100 years they've been caring for these materials. The conversations started probably more than a decade ago, and there was a delegation of Hawaiians who went to Te Papa and had conversations about the materials and their importance. And it's really an incredible act of leadership by Te Papa to make this connection back.
Talk about how special these items are. What are they made of? I know there's some really fascinating numbers that go along with them.
Well, these feathered cloaks, which you can see if you come to the museum, this one ahula has probably feathers from, I think, at least over 20,000 birds, and I think maybe 4 million individual feathers. And the netting is made from olona, which is the strongest fiber that you can find, natural fiber that you can find on the planet. So that's the materials themselves really reflect this abundance of natural, kind of our natural heritage, kind of woven into these pieces that are just exquisite.
Really fascinating interview there. I'm going to be posting more of that a little bit later in the day on our H&N digital platforms. Speaking of the digital platforms, we've got something else for you in regards to Campaign 2020. You know, last night H&N debuted our primetime special, The Job Interview. That is now posted there now. That's where the top contenders for city mayor sat down. No questions were off limits. We had Ashley talking with our managing editor, Daryl Huff, to discuss the key takeaways from last night's show.
Now, Daryl, you've been on a lot of panels over your decades in journalism. Have you seen a format like this before or participated in a format like this before?
No, you're right. I've been in tons of debates. I've produced debates as well as being on debates. And what happens is you maybe get in one question, and no matter what question you ask, they'll answer it whatever way they want. Limited follow-ups. You try and create a moment with a debate where it's kind of feisty. But it's always unsatisfying, especially when you've got 5 candidates. And I think that was what kind of drove our thinking here, is you've got 5 strong candidates, and you can't put them all up in a debate in any reasonable length of time and get to know any of them at all. But given the COVID thing, we had to be careful about distancing and so on, and so we narrowed it down to 6 people, 3 from Hawaii News Now, 3 from Civil Beat, and figured let's just give them each an hour. And it was really revelatory. You could see their strengths, you could see their weaknesses, you could see their personalities, and you really gave them an opportunity to talk. And I think every one of them thanked us for the opportunity afterwards.
Did any specific candidate or issue surprise you by the answers?
Well, I have to say I was kind of surprised mostly by Keith Amamiya, because I've never really had a conversation with him before. And he comes into the race very well backed, with a lot of powerful insiders backing his campaign.
I'm clearly my own man, and I do know all those people, but none of them asked me to run for office.
But he managed to come off as being intelligent and genuine, and I think he has the clearest strategy of all.
What were some of the key takeaways from the job interview? Did all of the top candidates appear to have a plan to pull us out of the pandemic?
None of them really had a plan to pull us out of the pandemic. They have no idea what's going to happen. And they have no idea how it's going to affect city revenues. You ask them, what would you cut? None of them really knew what they would cut. You ask them where they would get money. The only clear answer we got there was that Rick Blangiardi wants to tax the hotels more, which I found pretty striking. He does come off as very critical of the tourism industry, which kind of surprised me.
These are big multi-international hotels that have been here. They're really working in an extractive business and have been for a long time. And while they serve Hawaii well, there's a lot more I believe they could go back to do in the community.
Mufi Hanneman, as expected, came out very bullish on the tourism industry. What surprised me about him is that he intends to keep his job as a lobbyist for the hotel industry, until and unless he's elected.
So as I'm saying, this is no time for on-the-job training. You need someone that can hit the ground running.
Colleen Hanabusa was Colleen Hanabusa, and she has a lot of appeal to people who know her and trust her. Has kind of a challenge enunciating her stands on things. We spent a lot of time trying to get specifics out of her, and it was a little frustrating, but then there were moments too where her charisma and her intelligence and her extreme knowledge of detail came out too.
You cannot have somebody who's going to be learning on the job, or somebody who has, as I've said, training wheels, that needs training wheels. You need someone that knows how government works, because in this pandemic crisis, it is about government.
Kimberly Pine is using well her experience at City Hall. Been there, done that is sort of her message. I know how to do this. She's the only one with lengthy City Hall experience other than Mufi, obviously, and she's trying to take advantage of that. So I think they all had something to offer.
I've been studying this very complicated city system for 7.5 years, and I can tell you it's nothing like the state legislature. It is a very different form of government. Just understanding the complexities of each department has taken many years for me to do.
All right, thank you to H&N Managing Editor Daryl Huff. Jonathan, back to you.
Thank you, guys. We want to get you updated on that brush fire burning on the Valley Isle. Let me pull up the video right here. There's more than 3,000 acres that have been scorched near Hali'imaile. Officials say all roads have reopened and the crews have cut a fire break to protect nearby residents. The blaze started early yesterday morning, and MFD has not really given us any updated information on containment efforts, but as soon as we have that, we will pass it along to you on our H&N digital platforms. Looking at outside right now towards Ala Moana Beach, looking pretty nice out there. Let's turn it over to Guy Hoggy with the time now at 12:18 with more on your forecast.
How's it on this Thursday? Here's an update on Christina. Nothing happening with regard to cyclones in the Central Pacific. Things are very quiet. However, Christina's getting stronger. Expected to be a hurricane by tonight, but that's only for a short time because it's going to move into cooler water and eventually fall apart. By Tuesday, it's going to be a remnant low, winds down to 30 miles an hour. So it does not pose a severe weather threat for us, although we could see some rain from the system. But if the rain does come in, it's not a guarantee. And if the rain does come in, it's not going to happen for more than a week. So this morning, you can see there are some showers moving in, and we will have some cloudy periods from time to time today with the abundant moisture upstream. Rainfall totals, however, will be insignificant. Trade winds will run at surplus speeds, running about 15 to 20 miles an hour today. And that's good because of the abundant sunshine. At least humidity levels won't be all that crazy, although over in Kona, it's going to be very sticky there because they will not have the luxury of the trade winds, light and variable winds expected for the Kona side of the Big Island. Now, small boosts coming into south and east shores, nothing too big, and it's going to be choppiest over in the east side. And again, with all the sunshine, the UV index will be at extreme levels at 13. So put on the sunblock today as you head outdoors. And keep in mind, we will see our fair share of windward and mulka showers today and tomorrow. Drier conditions with stronger winds heading in for the weekend. We'll have more details on air and online.
Oh, thank you, Guy. From the feeds, guys, let's see what the internet is talking about right now.
Heads up, fellow pizza lovers. 7-Eleven Hawaii now has a pizza manapua after receiving multiple requests from customers. It's stuffed with pepperoni, onions, bell pepper, pizza sauce, olives, and mozzarella. I guess you could call it a pizza pua.
I would try that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would try that for sure.
Actually, Chunhwa Cam makes a pizza manapua too. So yeah, I definitely want to try this one as well.
Try them both.
And there's a new feature on Instagram. It's called Pin Comments, and the added option allows you to pin a few comments to the top of the comments thread of your posts. Now, this feature was designed to help limit the harassment and bullying that can go on within the social media world. Programmers hope the ability to pin comments might encourage more people on IG to post nicer things. And other new features include the ability to delete comments in bulk and to choose who you can tag and mention you on specific posts. All good things.
Down with the trolls.
Oh yeah. I have a zero tolerance policy for bad vibes on my social media.
All right, let's turn it over to Allison Blair with some good news about a nurse doing the best she can and the most she can with her vacation time.
The Oahu woman is one of 200 ICU nurses from across the country who responded to a call from hospitals in the city pleading for reinforcements.
I felt like I needed to go, I needed to help.
Speaking from a hotel room as she waited for her assignment, this is likely some of the only downtime Jackie Crawley will see for the next 2 weeks. It's time off from her job at Hawaii Life Flight and her second medical mission in just 3 months.
But I feel like my background as an intensive care unit nurse and these type of patients is really my forte, and I feel like I can, best help here where the need is.
In April, she spent 3 weeks at New York City's Lincoln Hospital.
I've never in my life, in my 20 plus years of nursing, seen so many critically ill patients, one bed after another. The patients I took care of in the Bronx were younger. They were in their 30s and 40s. A lot of them did not have underlying conditions. I wish, in a sense, that we could bring a camera in there into the ICUs and have people see that how real this is.
She says the hardest part was seeing patients separated from their families in their final days.
They were dying alone. I hate for Hawaii to go through what I've seen in New York because it was so heartbreaking.
Crawley wants to encourage residents to do what needs to be done to keep cases low in the islands, saying the alternative's not pretty.
Our resources here, we know that are very limited, and we need to understand that, it's to be at capacity and beyond capacity is going to be very detrimental, and we really need to take this seriously.
Currently in Hawaii, hospital resources are in good shape. Only about half of ICU beds are in use. Allison Blair, Hawaii News Now.
And more good news, boat tours for the USS Arizona Memorial will resume tomorrow. The site has been closed for months due to the pandemic, but the National Park Service says the tours will be limited to 50 people at a time, and online reservations are needed to be made in advance. Visitors will be required to wear face masks. To book tickets, just head to recreation.gov. And with no bon dances or the Okinawan Festival this year, some people are still getting their andagi fix. The Hawaii United Okinawa Association held an andagi online pre-sale fundraiser, and they sold out quickly. No word yet if they plan to make more. I hope they do, but keep your eyes peeled on the association's Facebook page.
Oh, that looks so good. So good. You guys, I hope you're having a lunch break right now because I'm about to start mine. Because that's going to do it for This Is Now on this Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow for your TGIF. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, guys.
Aloha.